The North American Motorized Bicycle Licensing Association presents First Buys. The day may arrive in every lad's life in which he finds that the pleasures of ordinary bicycling is not enough. He will inevitably pursue the motorized bicycle instead. Motorcycles are available in a wide variety of styles and colors, including but not limited to Bobby Boxers, Peppy Bangers, Wobbly Beans, Woodies, and the ever-popular Rhode Island Red Randy. Regardless of your choice of motorized bicycle style, the most important feature to look for in your first ride is the correct number and position of wheels. A proper motorized bicycle has 2 wheels in a tandem formation. If yours does not, you may have accidentally purchased a motor carriage, steamboat, or possibly even an abomination. If you have purchased an abomination, Nambler recommends that you set fire to it immediately. I'll go ahead and say that if the Polaris Slingshot is for you, don't let me discourage you. Because choosing a bike is kind of funny. People buy bikes for different reasons. And I think the number one reason that people buy bikes is because they've fallen in love. You saw a picture of it online, or maybe you saw a picture of it on a magazine cover in a bookstore, or slightly less likely in a library, and you fell in love. And if you're a fall in love kind of writer, then nothing I say today is probably going to encourage you or discourage you from choosing a different path or choosing a different bike from the one that you fell in love with. But if you're like me and you kind of got into writing by some weird accident, which is true, I got into writing by some weird accident, maybe what I have to say might push you more into a direction that'll make writing a means to fulfill an enjoyable fantasy. And let's face it, writing is all about the fantasy. So I think the number one thing that I would tell someone interested in getting into writing is to be fully aware of the entire range of activities that you can actually do on a motorcycle. Be aware of everything that's really out there. I think one of the best ways to do that would be to pick up one of those annual rider collection magazines that are published usually around April, and they'll have an image and some specs and a blurb about a whole bunch of different motorcycles. And you can learn a lot from one of those. Not a lot, but you can learn about different engine configurations, the different styles, the different price brackets, the sort of features that you get on a high-end bike like inverted forks that you don't really think about if you don't know that much about bikes. And they'll usually have a couple of reviews in there, like one off-road bike and one street bike and one cruiser. And the second thing I would suggest is to be honest with yourself about how you see yourself riding a motorcycle. And what do you want to do? What's your fantasy? Do you want to do track days? Do you want to go drag racing? Do you want to do touring? Do you want to camp? Do you want to hang out with other motorcyclists? You got the first part where you're aware of everything that you could do with a motorcycle. Now you're going to start picking out based on, what you think is going to be the most fun for you. And part 3, I would say, is where you really start to consider things like price. Part 3 is where you start looking on Craigslist. It's where you start looking in dealerships, looking for deals, things like that. Now, I wouldn't say start doing test rides unless, someone lets you. Or, look at your local dealership web pages and see if they're going to have, like, a demo day of some kind. Manufacturers will usually, they'll cart around a couple of demo mules from dealership to dealership. I mean, even Ducati does that. And, give them a try, if they'll let you. And I'd say lastly, unless, like I said, you fell in love, don't have your heart set on any one model. Keep a range in mind, because a range is going to give you a lot more options. It's going to open you up to used bikes, a wider range of options at the local dealership. Maybe they've got a model that they've been trying to get rid of for a while, which is kind of how I ended up with the Gladius here. And by the way, last month I was saying, oh man, I hope nothing goes wrong with the bike, and they end up keeping it for a week. Well, guess what happened? Nothing went wrong with the bike, but they had to order parts. And so they ended up keeping the bike for that whole beautiful week when it could have been filming moto vlogs and things like that. What can you do? I got the bike back. It sounds a little happier. I don't know. I'm not the most experienced rider, frankly. So, if you don't want to take my buying advice, that's fine. Anyway, Fairview's just up ahead. So I will say, see you later, YouTube stranger.